Hi there, my name is Paul Curtis. I've been designing and implementing training events and workshops in schools for more than 20 years. Schools spend tens of thousands and even hundreds of thousands of dollars each year on professional development for teachers and school administrators. Sometimes that spending has a real impact on the classroom, and other times it has almost no impact and seems like a total waste of money. The question is why? Why does some training stick and other training doesn't? That's what I've been grappling with, and I think I have at least part of the answer. I think it's safe to say that most change efforts begin with a goal in mind. Maybe it's to improve literacy or math scores, maybe it's to close learning and achievement gaps for groups of students, or to help teachers make effective use of technology. Almost always, the goals are worthy of achieving and based on some identified need, either from within the school or from an external driver. There are exceptions, of course, but overall, most goals are well-intentioned. Now, to achieve these goals, we need people, usually teachers, to behave a certain way. We need them to implement specific practices that are aligned to the goal. When we aren't meeting our goals adequately, we look to change teacher practice. And how do we get teachers to change their practice? Well, we train them, of course. Schools and districts implement a training program designed to make teachers aware of the need for change and provide instructions on how to implement the new behavior or practice. It's all very logical, right? Train the teachers, teachers change their practice, and the outcomes will materialize. Easy peasy. But as every school leader can testify to, it doesn't always go that smoothly. First, there was a group of teachers that seemed to resist the training, regardless of how noble the goal is. I remember doing a workshop. This was pre-COVID, and a teacher was actually celebrating that they never opened the school-provided laptop and didn't plan to ever open it. Second, even when teachers are happy, or dare I say excited about the training, visit those classrooms a few weeks later and few teachers are implementing the desired practices. And third, when the teachers do actually implement the desired practices, the desired outcomes, the goals established at the very beginning, don't seem to be materializing. When school leaders experience this, it is so easy for them to blame the teachers. For some reason, they conclude, teachers don't have the desire or capacity to make the necessary changes. I think this is a mistake. As I'll explain, this is like blaming the sun-loving plant for not blooming after you plant it in the shadiest part of your yard. Blaming the teachers is too easy. I think there is something else going on here. At some point, early in my work with school training, I was introduced to Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Just in case you haven't heard of it, it describes a set of building blocks that allow a person to become the most they are capable of becoming. At the bottom, you have physiological needs like air, water, food, etc. It's hard to think about personal growth if you haven't eaten in a few days. Once these basic needs are met, you need to feel safe. Then there are some social and personal esteem needs that need to be fed. The key idea here is that it is nearly impossible to be all you can be if the more basic human needs are not satisfied first. Well, this got me thinking. Why aren't teachers successfully implementing the desired practices? And when they do, why don't we see the desired outcomes or goals? In other words, why aren't they being the best they can be? The answer is that while goals and practices are top of mind when we think about change, these two elements are just the tip of the iceberg for materializing change. Like an iceberg, there is actually a set of conditions below the waterline that have a significant impact on the success of any change effort. And just like Maslow's hierarchy, the conditions are not optional. They are prerequisites to achieving our goals. Failing to navigate these hidden, more foundational elements can sink any effort at change. School leaders need to pay attention to what's under the water. Let's unpack each of these conditions one by one. At the bottom of this hierarchy is purpose. Purpose explains why we're here and why we're doing what we're doing. You'd think this would be fairly easy for schools, right? We're here to teach kids. But in reality, educators have a wide spectrum of beliefs about the purpose of school. Are we preparing them for future academic life? Or to be a valued employee? Or maybe a good citizen in our democracy? Maybe we just want them to be happy. Or maybe there's something else. Your sense of purpose shapes how you perceive change initiatives. Consider this. A math teacher that sees her professional purpose is to teach math, and she measures her success by looking at her student scores on standardized tests. You can imagine that an effort to mainstream learning disabled students into her classroom will likely be seen as an obstacle rather than an opportunity. But what if we were able to redefine her purpose to change how she measures success? Let me ask you this. How does your school know if it's being successful? Is it test scores, parent feedback, graduation rates, college acceptance, college graduation rates, football championships, or something else entirely? Defining what success looks like is an incredibly important step in defining your school's sense of purpose. In this sense, purpose and goals are connected. But while goals tend to come from the mind, purpose comes from the heart. For example, a purpose in life might be to live as an adventurous life as possible. A goal, on the other hand, would be to climb Mount Everest. The purpose is the underlying why that drives our decisions and actions. Having a shared sense of purpose that is aligned to the changes you intend to implement is essential. Schools must invest and reinvest time and effort into building a common organizational purpose and work to make sure that all staff have personal ownership of that purpose. Everything above is a derivative of it. Which brings us to our next element, culture. An organization's culture is the combination of beliefs, values, traditions, power structures, and relationships. It might be simpler to say that culture is how individuals interact with others in the organization or community. The culture of an organization comes out of purpose. A military unit has a different purpose than a church community, and each needs a different culture to support that purpose. A coach that believes the purpose of sports is to build character will establish a very different team culture than a coach that believes the purpose is to win. Organizations can be competitive or cooperative in nature, empowering or disempowering, supportive or hostile, open to new ideas or closed to them. They can be hierarchical with centralized decision-making or democratic with shared decision-making. There are dozens of variables that can define an organization's culture. What I know is this. In order for training to have any real impact on the classroom, schools need to be in a learning mode. What I mean is that they must have a culture of a learning organization where individuals have a growth mindset, feel safe enough to take some risks and to share things they're struggling with, and are receptive to information and data that might contradict their perspectives or perceptions. All sorts of things can undermine a school's culture, including teacher evaluation systems, interactions with school leaders and peers, staff layoffs, any number of things. There are also things that can just exhaust staff's capacity to take on something new. Overcrowded classrooms, low pay, poor facilities, challenging parents, and just the daily grind of working with young people all day. I know we often feel like some of those things are not within our control, and they may not be. But the reality is this. Asking teachers that are worn down or fearful to grapple with a change initiative is a lost cause. Rather than spending $10,000 on training, You'll get more bang for your buck if you invest in the school's ability to become a learning organization first. Above culture sits the structures of the organization. Like the rules of a game, structures define the boundaries of what is possible and what is impossible. In schools, structures are things like the yearly calendar, the daily schedule, the design of the school and classrooms, the staff work contract, the textbooks, the learning management system, the school budget, even the A through F grading system and GPA. Basically, everything that defines how a school functions. One of my strongest beliefs is that structures are one of the most powerful instigators of change and resistors to change. The quickest way to manifest change is to change a structure. For example, if you want people to drive slower, add speed bumps. If you want to reduce how much luggage people bring on airplanes, charge them for each bag. Structures like these have the ability to quickly alter people's behavior. I'd like to provide 2 examples that strengthen my argument that structures are actually more important than training. The first is a sports analogy. I'd like you to imagine a group of young athletes training to play football. All summer long, their coach is pushing them to run plays. They practice throwing the ball, catching the ball, running the ball, tackling, blocking, and everything else you can think of to make them a winning football team. They're pretty confident that they can win their first game. On game day, instead of being taken to the football stadium, their first game is actually going to be played on a basketball court against a basketball team and with basketball referees. Here's my question. What sport will the young athletes play? Football or basketball? Will they follow their training or will the rules of the game rule their behavior? The answer, of course, is they will play basketball. Even if they know nothing about basketball, the game would train them. If they try to run the ball to the end of the court to score a touchdown, not only would they not make any points, the referee would blow the whistle, stop the game, and give the ball to the other team. When they saw the team scoring points by putting the ball into the basket, they would learn to shoot. Even though they have never been coached to dribble, they would start dribbling the ball as they moved. To be clear, I'm not saying that they would play basketball well or that none of their football skills wouldn't carry over to basketball. What I am saying is that the rules of the game, the structures, are more powerful than any amount of training. In order to be successful, structures and training need to be aligned. You can't out-train structures. My second example is school-based. I want you to imagine a high school schedule where each period lasted just 15 minutes and there were 12 periods in a day. That's right, teachers would have just 15 minutes each day to meet with their students. What would instruction look like? You'd basically have time to take roll, collect some homework, and assign new work, right? Okay, let's reverse it. What if the class period lasted all day, but met only once a week? What would instruction look like then? A 4-hour lecture isn't going to cut it. How would teacher behavior adapt? Again, my point is that human behavior and teacher practices evolve within and are limited by the structures of the school. If the structures don't support the behavior or practice, it is unlikely to be adopted no matter how much training you provide. You can't out-train structures. Structures set boundaries on what is possible. When structures are misaligned with desired classroom practices, change is nearly impossible. When structures support and reinforce desired behaviors, they drive and amplify change. So you might be asking yourself, if structures are so important, why do we need to spend our time on building a shared purpose and a culture of learning? Can't we just skip those and just use structures to get where we need to be? Here's the problem with that. If people don't have ownership of the structures, they will reject them. A quick way to destroy initiatives is to have teachers and parents storming into the school board meeting criticizing the effort. Even if they don't take it that far, a resentful and resistant staff can undermine the best intentions, killing it with 1,000 paper cuts. And based on their experience, they know if they wait it out, it's likely a new school leader will come along and launch something entirely different. Remember, it's people that ultimately have to implement the structures, and if they are not on your side, it's an uphill battle. With a clear sense of organizational purpose, a culture that reflects a learning organization, and a set of structures aligned with the desired classroom practices, we can finally get to training. Now, like the football players thrust onto that basketball court, the context is set for something new. Any coaching they get now is aligned with and resonates with what they experience on the court. Rather than a trainer telling them they need to change, the whole ecosystem is reinforcing the desired change. Training shifts from being a new expectation that teachers can't live up to into an asset that helps teachers be successful. Okay, we've established a basic hierarchy for implementing change in schools. But I'm not happy with the visual. It makes it appear like huge investments at the bottom lead to small outcomes at the top. My experience is the opposite. Doing nothing except getting everyone on the same page regarding your organization's purpose has big payoffs even if you do nothing else. The purpose alone can become a driver of spontaneous individual action in support of the organization's mission. So let's flip the pyramid to better reflect how small investments at the bottom of the hierarchy can have larger payoffs at the top. There, that's better. Lastly, we need to turn this into a cool infographic to capture everything we just talked about. So there you have it, my version of the hierarchy of school change. When organizations fail to address the more foundational aspects of the hierarchy, training is unlikely to be successful. But when organizations align purpose, culture, and structures to truly support the pedagogy they desire to see in the classroom, investments in training can have real and lasting impact in the classroom. The bigger the change, the more important investing in the bottom of the hierarchy is. I'd love to hear from you and learn if this framework resonates with your experience and if it's helpful to you. If you'd like to dive deeper into this topic, I've built a digital course that provides additional information about each element of the hierarchy and provides resources for manifesting change in your school or district. See the description below for details.